Hello. This will be a reading of Emanuel Swedenborg's Heaven and Its Wonders and Hell. Heaven and Hell. Where the Lord, in the presence of his disciples, speaks about the consummation of the age, which is the last period of the Church, towards the end of the predictions regarding its successive states with respect to love and faith, he says this: Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a trumpet and great voice, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Matthew 24:29-31. Those who understand these words in accordance with the sense of the letter have no other belief than that at the final period, which is called the Last Judgment, all those events will occur as described in that sense. Therefore they believe not only that the sun and moon will be darkened, and the stars will fall from heaven, that the sign of the Lord will appear in the sky, and that he himself will be seen in the clouds, as well as angels with trumpets, but also, as is foretold elsewhere, that the whole visible earth will be destroyed, after which a new heaven with a new earth will come into being. Such is the opinion of most men within the Church at the present day, but those who so believe do not know the arcana which lie concealed in every particular of the Word. For in every particular of the Word there is an internal sense in which are discerned not the natural and worldly matters such as are in the sense of the letter, but spiritual and heavenly things. Moreover, this is true not only of the meaning of groups of words, but it is also true of every single word. The word has been written by means of pure correspondences, to the end that the internal sense may be in every particular. The nature of that sense can be confirmed from all that has been said and shown about it in Arcana Celestia, also from what has been summarized in the explanation of the white horse mentioned in the Revelation. It is in accordance with that sense that the words of the Lord quoted above concerning his coming in the clouds of heaven are to be understood. In that passage, by the sun which is to be darkened is signified the Lord as to love, by the moon the Lord as to faith, by the stars cognitions of good and truth, or of love and faith, by the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, the manifestation of divine truth, by the tribes of the earth which shall mourn, all things relating to truth and good, or to faith and love, by the coming of the Lord in the clouds of heaven with power and glory, his presence in the Word and Revelation. By clouds is signified the sense of the letter of the Word, and by glory the internal sense of the Word. By angels with a trumpet and great voice is signified heaven, whence comes divine truth. Hence it is evident that by those words of the Lord is meant that in the end of the Church, when there is no longer any love and consequently no faith, the Lord will open the Word in its internal sense and reveal arcana of heaven. The arcana is now revealed in the following pages, treat of heaven and hell, and at the same time of man's life after death. The man of the Church at this day knows scarcely anything about heaven and hell, or about his life after death, although they are all set forth and described in the Word. Indeed, many people born within the Church even deny them, saying in their hearts, "Who has come from that world and told us?" Lest therefore such a negative attitude, which prevails especially with those who have much worldly wisdom, should also infect and corrupt the simple in heart and the simple in faith, it has been granted to me to associate with angels and to talk with them as man with man, also to see the things in the heavens as well as in the hells, and this for 13 years. Now, therefore, from what I have seen and heard, I am permitted to describe these things, in the hope that thus ignorance may be enlightened and unbelief dispelled. Such immediate revelation is now made because it is what is meant by the coming of the Lord. The Lord is the God of heaven. The first essential is to know who the God of heaven is, since everything else depends upon that. Throughout the whole of heaven, no other than the Lord alone is acknowledged as the God of heaven. There they declare, as he himself taught, that he is one with the Father, that the Father is in him, and he in the Father, that he who sees him sees the Father, and that everything that is holy goes forth from him. John 10:30, 38, 14, 10, 11, 16, 13 to 15. I have quite often talked with angels on this matter, and they have constantly declared that in heaven they are unable to distinguish the divine into three, because they know and perceive that the divine is one, and that it is one in the Lord. They even said that people who come from this world, from the church, having an idea of three divine beings, cannot be admitted into heaven, because their thought wanders from one to another, and it is not allowable there to think of three and say one. This is because everyone in heaven speaks from the thought, for there they have a cognitive speech, or thought speaking. Consequently, those who in this world have distinguished the divine into three, and have adopted a separate idea of each, and have not made that idea one in the Lord, and centered it there, cannot be received. For in heaven they have a communication of the thoughts of all, so that if anyone came there thinking of three and saying one, he would immediately be discovered and rejected. It ought to be known, however, that all those who have not separated truth from good, or faith from love, receive, when instructed in the other life, the heavenly idea of the Lord, that He is the God of the universe. It is indeed otherwise with those who have separated faith from life, that is, who have not lived in accordance with the precepts of a true faith. Those within the church who have denied the Lord and have acknowledged only the Father, and have confirmed themselves in that faith, are outside heaven, and because no influx from heaven where the Lord alone is worshipped reaches them, they are gradually deprived of all the faculty of thinking that is true about anything at all. And at length they become as though they were dumb, or else they talk stupidly and wander about with their arms dangling and swinging as if lacking strength in their joints. In the same way, those who have denied the Trinity of the Lord and, like the Socinians, have acknowledged only His human are outside heaven, they are brought forward a little towards the right and let down into the deep, and are thus completely separated from the rest of those from the Christian world. Moreover, those who profess belief in an invisible divine, which they call the soul, ends of the universe, from which all things came into existence, but who reject the faith regarding the Lord, are found to have no belief in any gods, since to them this invisible divine is like nature in its first principles, which faith and love cannot reach, because it cannot be thought about. Such are relegated among those called naturalistic. Things happen in a different manner with those born outside the church and called Gentiles, of whom more will be said in subsequent pages. All little children, of whom a third part of heaven is formed, are initiated into the acknowledgement and faith that the Lord is their Father, and afterwards that He is the Lord of all, therefore God of heaven and earth. It will be seen in the following pages that little children grow up in the heavens, and, by means of cognitions, are perfected even to angelic intelligence and wisdom. Those who are from the church cannot doubt that the Lord is the God of heaven, for He Himself taught that all things of the Father are His. Matthew 6:27, John 16:15, 17:2, and that all power is given unto Him in heaven and in earth. Matthew 28:18. He says, in heaven and in earth, because He who rules heaven rules the earth also, for the one who depends upon the other. To rule heaven and earth means to receive from Him every good pertaining to love, and every truth pertaining to faith, thus all intelligence and wisdom, and so all happiness, in short, eternal life. This also the Lord taught when He said, He that believeth on the Son hath everlasting life, but he that believeth not the Son shall not see life. John 3:36. Again, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he die, yet shall he live, and whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. John 6:25-26. And again, I am the way, the truth, and the life. John 14:6. There are certain spirits who, while they lived in the world, acknowledged the Father without having any other idea of the Lord than as of another man, and who therefore did not believe that He was the God of heaven. For this reason they were permitted to wander about and inquire wherever they wished, whether there were any other heaven than the Lord's heaven. They searched for several days, but nowhere found any. These spirits were among such as placed the happiness of heaven in glory and in domination, and because they could not get possession of what they desired, and were told that heaven does not consist of such things, they were indignant and wished to have a heaven where they could lord it over others and be eminent in a glory like that in the world. The divine of the Lord makes heaven. The angels taken collectively are called heaven, because they constitute heaven, but yet it is the divine proceeding from the Lord which inflows with the angels and is received by them, that makes heaven in general and in part. The divine proceeding from the Lord is the good of love and the truth of faith, to the extent, therefore, that they receive good and truth from the Lord. In that measure they are angels, and in that measure they are heaven. Everyone in the heavens knows, believes, and even perceives that he wills and does nothing of good from himself, and that he thinks and believes nothing of truth from himself, but from the divine, thus from the Lord, and that the good and truth which are from himself are not good and truth, because they have no life from the divine in them. The angels of the inmost heaven also clearly perceive and feel the influx, and the more of it they receive, the more they seem to themselves to be in heaven, because the more are they in love and faith, in the light of intelligence and wisdom, and in heavenly joy therefrom. Since all those states proceed from the divine of the Lord, and in these the angels have their heaven, it is clear that it is the divine of the Lord that makes heaven, and not the angels from anything of their proprium. This is the reason heaven in the Word is termed the dwelling place of the Lord, and his throne, and why those who are there are said to be in the Lord. The manner in which the divine proceeds from the Lord and fills heaven will be told in what follows. Angels from their wisdom go still further. They say that not only everything good and true is from the Lord, but everything of life as well. They confirm it by this, that nothing can come into existence from itself, but from something prior to itself. Therefore all things come into existence from a first, which they call the very being of the life of all. Similarly, all things continue in existence, but continuing in existence is perpetual coming into existence, and what is not held continually by intermediates in connection with a first disappears there and then, and is entirely dissipated. They say further that there is but one function of life, and that man's life is a stream therefrom, which, if it did not unceasingly come into existence from its fountain, would immediately flow away. Again, they say that from that one fountain of life, which is the Lord, nothing proceeds except divine good and divine truth, which affect one in accordance with the reception. Those who receive them in faith and life find heaven in them, but those who reject and suffocate them turn them into hell, for they turn good into evil, and truth into falsity, thus life into death. The fact also that everything of life is from the Lord, they confirm by this, and that all things in the universe have reference to good and truth, the life of a man's will, which is the life of his love, relating to good, and the life of a man's understanding, which is the life of his faith, relating to truth. Therefore, since everything good and true comes from above, it follows that so does everything of life. This being the belief of the angels, they refuse all thanks for the good that they do, and are indignant and withdraw if anyone attributes good to them. They are astonished that anyone believes that he is wise from himself, or does good from himself. Doing good for one's own sake they do not call good, because it is from self, but doing good for the sake of good they call good from the divine, and they say it is this good that makes heaven, because good is the Lord. Such spirits as have confirmed themselves during their life in the world in the belief that the good that they do and the truth that they believe are from themselves, or appropriated to them as their own, which is the belief of all who attach merit to good actions and claim righteousness to themselves, are not received into heaven. the angels avoid them, regarding them as stupid and as thieves. Stupid because they continually have themselves in view and not the divine. Thieves because they would take away from the Lord that which is his. These are opposed to the faith of heaven, that the divine of the Lord, present with the angels, makes heaven. The Lord also teaches that those who are in heaven and in the church are in the Lord, and the Lord is in them, when he says, "Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can ye, except ye abide in me. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, for without me ye can do nothing." John 15:4-5. From these things it can now be established that the Lord dwells with the angels of heaven in what is his own, and thus that the Lord is in all things of heaven. The reason for this is that good from the Lord is the Lord with the angels, for that which is from him is himself. Similarly, it is plain that it is good from the Lord which is heaven for the angels, and not anything of their proprium. The divine of the Lord in heaven is love to him and charity towards the neighbour. The divine going forth from the Lord is called in heaven divine truth, for a reason which will be shown in what follows. This divine truth inflows into heaven from the Lord from his divine love. The divine love and the divine truth therefrom are related to each other, as are the fire of the sun and the light therefrom in the world. Love being as the fire of the sun, and truth therefrom as light from the sun. Moreover, from correspondence, fire signifies love, and light, truth going forth from love. From this, the nature of divine truth going forth from divine love can be confirmed. In its essence, it is divine good conjoined to divine truth, and because it is conjoined, it gives life to all things of heaven, just as the heat of the sun conjoined to the light of the world makes all things of the earth fruitful, as happens in the spring and summer. It is otherwise when heat is not conjoined to light, thus when the light is cold, when all things are torpid and lifeless. This divine good which is compared to heat is the good of love with the angels, whereas the divine truth which is compared to light is that through which and from which comes the good of love. The divine in heaven which makes heaven is love, because love is spiritual conjunction. It conjoins angels to the Lord, and conjoins them to one another, so conjoining them that, in the Lord's sight, they are all as one. Moreover, love is the very being of life with everyone. Consequently, it is from love that both angels and men have their life. Everyone who considers the matter may know that the inmost vitality of man is from love, for he grows warm from its presence, cold from its absence, and deprived of it he dies. But it ought to be known that each one's life is in accordance with the love he has. There are two distinct loves in heaven, love to the Lord and love towards the neighbour. In the inmost or third heaven is love to the Lord, and in the second or middle heaven is love towards the neighbour. Each proceeds from the Lord, and each makes heaven. What the distinction is between these two loves and how they are conjoined appears in heaven in clear light, but in the world only obscurely. In heaven, by loving the Lord is not meant loving him in respect of his person, but loving the good which is from him, and loving good is willing good, and doing it from love. And loving the neighbour does not mean loving a companion in respect to his person, but loving the truth which is from the word, and loving truth is willing, and doing it. From this it is clear that there is a distinction between these two loves, as there is between good and truth, and that they are conjoined as good is conjoined with truth. But these things can scarcely be comprehended by a man who does not know what love is, what good is, and what the neighbour is. I have several times talked with angels about this matter. They declared their surprise that men of the church do not know that loving the Lord and the neighbour is loving good and truth, and doing this as a result of willing him, when yet they might know that one shows his love by willing and doing whatever the other wills, and that in this way he is loved in return, and is conjoined with the one he loves, not by loving him without doing his will, which in itself is not loving. They also said that men should know that the good going forth from the Lord is a likeness of himself, because he is in it, and that those who make good and truth the principles of their life by intention and action become likenesses of him, and are conjoined to him. Indeed, to will is to love doing. Besides, the Lord teaches in the word that this is so, saying, He that hath my commandments and doeth them, he it is that loveth me, and I will love him, and will make my abode with him. John 14:21-23. And again, If ye do my commandments, ye shall abide in my love. John 15:10-12. All experience in heaven testifies to the divine going forth from the Lord, which affects the angels and makes heaven, being love. For all who are there are forms of love and charity, and appear in ineffable beauty, with love shining forth from their faces, their speech, and every particular of their life. Moreover, there are, emanating from and surrounding every angel and every spirit, spiritual spheres of life, by which their qualities, in respect of the affections of love, are known, sometimes at a considerable distance. For those spheres flow forth from the life of anyone's affection and consequent thought, or from the life of his love and consequent faith. The spheres that go forth from angels are so full of love as to affect the inmost things of life of those with whom they are. They have frequently been perceived by me, and they have so affected me. That it is from love that angels have their life was further evident from the fact that in the other life everyone turns himself in accordance with his love. Those who are in love to the Lord and love towards the neighbour constantly turn themselves to the Lord, with those who are in the love of self turn themselves constantly away from the Lord. This takes place in every turning of their body. For in the other life spaces conform to the states of their interiors, and so do the quarters, which are not determined as in the world, but are determined according to which way they are looking. Yet it is not the angels who turn themselves to the Lord, but the Lord who turns to him those who love to do the things that are from him. But more will be written on these matters in the following pages, where the quarters in the other life are described. The divine of the Lord in heaven is love, for the reason that love is the receptacle of all the things of heaven, which are peace, intelligence, wisdom, and happiness. For love is receptive of each, and all things in agreement with it. It desires them, seeks them, and imbibes them, as it were, spontaneously, for it desires unceasingly to be enriched and perfected by means of them. This indeed is well known to man, for with him love, as it were, looks into the stores of his memory, drawing forth all things in accord with itself, collecting and arranging them in and under itself, in itself, that they may be its own, under itself, that they may be serviceable to it. Other things not in accord, it rejects and expels. Yet there is present in love every capacity for receiving truths in agreement with itself, and the desire to conjoin them to itself has indeed been made abundantly clear by the experience of some who were taken up into heaven. Although they had been simple-minded when in the world, yet among the angels they came into angelic wisdom and heavenly blessedness. This was because they loved what is good and true for the sake of good and truth, and implanted them in their life, thereby becoming capable of receiving heaven with all that is ineffable there. But those who are in the love of self and of the world have no capacity for receiving such things. They turn from them and reject them, and at the first touch and influx of them they flee away and associate with those in hell who are in loves like their own. There were spirits who were doubtful about there being such capacities in heavenly love, and who desired to know whether it were so. They were therefore brought into a state of heavenly love, whatever opposed being for the time removed. They were then brought forward some distance where there was an angelic heaven, and from it they talked with me, saying that they perceived a more interior happiness than they could express in words, and lamenting greatly that they would be returning to their former state. Others also were taken up into heaven, and the higher or more interiorly they were exalted, the more they were admitted into intelligence and wisdom, so that they could perceive what had before been incomprehensible to them. From this it is clear that love, going forth from the Lord, is the receptacle of heaven and of all things therein. That love to the Lord and love towards the neighbour includes in itself all divine truths can be confirmed by what the Lord himself declared of these two loves, saying, Thou shalt love thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul. This is the greatest and first commandment. And the second like unto it is this, thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself. On these two commandments hang the law and the prophets. Matthew 22:37-40. The law and the prophets are the whole word, thus all divine truth.